It began on a rainy evening that felt too heavy for a heart already carrying years of grief. Daniel, a single father who had spent the last 3 years convincing himself that love had no place left in his future, sat alone in a softly lit restaurant, tapping his trembling fingers against the table. He had promised himself he would never try dating again after losing Emily, the woman who had been his entire world, the mother of his little daughter, Hope. But after months of gentle pressure from his sister and friends who believed he deserved happiness again, he agreed to one blind date, just one, just enough to prove he wasn't completely closed off. Yet from the moment he sat down, his chest tightened with guilt, fear, and the strange sensation that he was betraying someone he had never stopped loving. And then, just as he was ready to walk out, he saw her. A woman walking toward him, her silhouette framed by warm lights, moving in a way that made his breath vanish. She stepped closer, and his heart collapsed inside him. She looked exactly like Emily, the same soft eyes, the same calm grace, the same hesitant smile that once made him believe life was beautiful. If you believe in kindness, healing, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. For a moment, Daniel forgot how to breathe. His fingers curled into fists beneath the table as memories of his late wife came rushing back like a storm, memories he spent years trying to manage, but never erase. The woman introduced herself as Claire, and though her voice was different, her presence stirred something in him that was both comforting and excruciating. The resemblance was remarkable, almost unbelievable, and Daniel could feel his composure slipping. He didn't want to stare, yet he couldn't stop. It terrified him. Claire noticed the confusion in his expression and apologized softly, assuming he was disappointed by the blind date. But disappointment was the last thing on his mind. He was drowning in a grief he thought he had already learned to swim through. As the dinner unfolded, Daniel struggled with the collision of past and present. Every small movement, her hair tucked behind her ear, her gentle laugh, the way she held her glass, echoed Emily so closely that Daniel's heart felt like it was being torn open all over again. He could barely focus on her words, and at several moments his eyes welled up without warning, leaving Claire unsure of what she had done wrong. Meanwhile, Daniel's mind raced between guilt and longing. He knew Claire wasn't Emily. He knew life wasn't cruel enough to play tricks like that, or maybe it was exactly that cruel. He wanted to escape, to run away from this accidental reminder of the love he had buried, but something kept him rooted to the chair, an invisible thread pulling him toward her, urging him to understand why fate had placed this mirror of Emily in front of him. Claire eventually asked if everything was all right, and though Daniel nodded, he silently fought against the urge to break down. He had spent 3 years building walls around his heart to survive, and tonight, one blind date had shaken them all. He excused himself and stepped outside into the cold air, wiping away tears he couldn't control. The rain had stopped, but the scent of wet pavement lingered, reminding him of nights when Emily had danced in the rain with their daughter, laughing loudly as if sadness didn't exist. When he returned to the table, Claire was standing, preparing to leave, convinced she had made him uncomfortable. But something inside Daniel shifted in that moment. Instead of walking away, he gently asked her to stay. Not because she looked like Emily, but because he felt something he hadn't felt in years, the faintest hint that he was still alive, still capable of connection, still capable of feeling something beyond pain. The rest of the evening changed. Claire began sharing pieces of her own life, the heartbreak she had survived, the dreams she had let go of, the guilt she carried for not being enough for the people she once loved. She confessed that she almost didn't show up to the blind date because she was afraid of being rejected again, of not being worthy of someone's time. Daniel listened, realizing that beneath the resemblance lay a completely different soul, one shaped by her own wounds and still fighting her own battles. As she spoke, something softened inside him. He saw the person she truly was, not the memory she accidentally resembled. What surprised Daniel most was how easy it became to talk to her. Without planning to, he found himself sharing his journey as a single father, the difficulty of explaining to his daughter why her mother never came home, the fear he lived with every day, and the ache that never quite disappeared no matter how much time passed. Claire listened with the kind of quiet empathy that made him feel safe. There was no judgment, no pressure, no expectation, just a gentle presence that allowed him to breathe again. As the night deepened, Daniel realized something extraordinary. Claire wasn't reopening old wounds, she was helping them breathe. She was not replacing Emily. She was reminding him that healing didn't mean forgetting. That moving forward didn't mean leaving someone behind. That sometimes life brought the most unexpected people into your path not to confuse you, but to show you something you couldn't see on your own. A week later, Daniel introduced Claire to Hope. He was terrified, unsure how his daughter would react. But Hope, with the innocent wisdom that only children possess, simply smiled and told Claire she felt warm like sunshine. In that moment, Daniel understood that life had led him here for a reason. Not to erase his past, but to expand his future. As months passed, the guilt that once crushed Daniel began to loosen its grip. He started seeing Claire for who she truly was, a kind, resilient woman who carried her own scars with grace. They didn't rush anything. They allowed time to guide them gently, step by step. Slowly, Daniel stopped comparing, stopped fearing, stopped holding back. He learned that love didn't have to compete with memory. It could coexist. It could grow in spaces where grief once lived. It could bring warmth to the coldest parts of a heart. And one quiet evening, as Claire held Hope's hand while they crossed the street, Daniel realized he was witnessing the beginning of something beautiful, something he never thought he'd experience again. Not a replacement. Not a second version of the past. But a new chapter, full of softness, patience, and quiet miracles. If this story touched your heart even a little, please support it by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to Kindness Thread. Your love helps these stories reach more people who need